We get there, and everyone is glaring daggers at me. The whole thing is tense until we get a slideshow on her sister showing pictures of the nursery and other baby stuff. In the slideshow, there was a picture of me with the other girl at the bar. Welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go over them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, I'm going to go over two different stories dealing with the subject of open marriage. And in these two stories, you're going to see in both situations, it has led the relationship to go to hell in a handbasket. One between the couple and another one with their extended family. First one, title is, My Husband, a 34-year-old male, wants to get a divorce on paper before we try poly. And in this story, guys, this woman decides out of the blue, like literally out of the blue, that she really is poly. Therefore, she feels entitled to get as much sausage and do as much sword swallowing, if you will, as much as she wants. But the problem is, she's married. So she convinces her husband to go along with this. But unlike a lot of guys in these stories, this guy says, okay, well, we're going to get a divorce on paper first. In other words, we're essentially divorced, everything is split up, and that way then we do the poly thing, which guess what, usually doesn't work out well. Everything's already done on paper and good to go and be submitted to the courts. Very pragmatic, practical thing. And as you can imagine, she doesn't think it's very fair. It's perfectly okay and fair for her to go get sausage left and right, and obviously he's going to get a lot less the other thing. But when he actually wants to get something out of it, to be reasonable, that's not fair. So, I'm going to go through this one. It's definitely entertaining to hear her whining and complaining on the subject. Starts off, it says, background. Over the past year, I figured out that I identify as polyamorous. I've always felt this way, being attracted to more than one person at a time and wanting it to be more. Newsflash, since the beginning of time, since marriage began, people have been attracted to other people. But guess what? Up until now, people had it as, okay, you can be attracted to people, but it doesn't mean you're going to go out and act upon it. You're going to have some loyalty and respect to your husband, or in this case, your wife, and that's that. But now this idea is like, oh, well, it's actually a thing, therefore you can go outside your marriage and try to convince people it's a good thing. What a load of crap. Identify as poly, get the hell out of here. But I figured these were just feelings that would go away as I aged, but they didn't. They've only become more intense. And after reading much on this subject and a hell of a lot of other awesome resources, I found that my feelings are not abnormal at all. I'm just poly. You mean you read a bunch of articles in different magazines and had a bunch of women talk about this so they can all benefit and have an excuse to label themselves as this poly thing, and therefore it can pretty much justify and legalize cheating. That's what this really is. And how many times does it end up hell in a handbasket every time? The wrinkle is that I'm married. 4 years married, 3 years dating. My husband and I have a really great relationship. Well, it clearly ain't that great, honey. I've always felt fearless to speak to him about anything, so I did. I told him how I felt, and that it certainly doesn't change the way I feel about him, and that I don't have anyone else in mind. Please. They always have somebody else in mind. There's always a guy, at least one, they have in reserves just waiting to hook up with the second they convince their poor, dumb bastard husbands to go along with this. I don't want to hear there's no one else in mind. And that I love him dearly. Yeah, I can tell you love your husband so dearly. And don't want to change in any way. I read many coming out to your spouse posts and try to reassure him in every way I could. You mean try to manipulate him in every way you could. His initial reaction was to assume that I did in fact have someone else in mind, and it took some convincing to make him understand that wasn't true. This guy's not stupid. He knew something's up. There's somebody else. And she says convince him. You more like manipulate him. He said that he wasn't sure it made sense to him, but agreed to take some time to research it and see. I was initially thrilled, and I expected a much worse reaction. So he went through resources on the web and read a couple of books, and we talked about it a lot. The problem, the initial talk was about 6 weeks ago. We talked about it all the time for a week or so. He seemed very curious and almost excited about the idea. Well, at least about the sex part. But it tailed off from there. And for the last few weeks, I've been the only one to approach the subject. Gee, like he can't tell she's eager to hop on the carousel, huh? Last night we were out to dinner and I brought it up. He said that he was now indifferent to the idea. Well, that's the worst thing for someone to be. You know, there's in love and there's indifferent. Indifferent is you can give a crap. And he obviously can give a crap about her at this point. She obviously killed any love he has for her. He was worried about jealousy and figured that the whole thing would be way too much work for too little payoff. His words. That it was really dangerous, but he was willing to try if I really wanted to. At this point, he doesn't give a shit. But then he said one more thing. I think we should get divorced first, though. She never saw that coming. My heart sank, and I was about to tear up when he quickly clarified what he meant. A paper divorce. Just split our finances and file for a divorce now, so we don't have to worry about it if something bad happens. Our living situation and everything will stay the same, just with separate accounts and such. Uh-oh, split up the money? She can't have access to his money? Now we know why she freaks out. And here we are. I was and still am pretty effing angry at his reaction. You tell him that you want to go F other dudes, but if he suggests that we should essentially divorce on paper and you're pretty angry at his reaction, how dare he? You just admitted you want to find a loophole to justify cheating. That he ain't good enough. He knows how important this is to me, and I feel like he's just setting this up for failure. Lady, this thing always ends in failure. The only way it doesn't end in failure, both parties were on board about an open relationship from the start. They were both into alternative lifestyles, if you will, and they're both on the same page. They weren't together in a monogamous relationship, and then one day, one party, goes both ways, says all of a sudden, I want to F other dudes, or he says, I want to F other women and make it legal. No. I mean, I see his logic, but I don't want a divorce. That's just going to predestine failure. So she sees his logic, but emotionally, she doesn't like it. Ugh, I'm not sure what to do. I don't want a divorce, but I really want to explore this side of me. Has anyone been in a similar situation? How can I reassure him that no matter what we try, that I won't stop loving him, and so we don't need a divorce? Or is he being the sane one? Is this the right thing to do? Well, I think they're both completely effed up here. What he should do is say, we're done. Yeah, we had a great time together. I thought I was enough for you, but clearly I'm not. And I don't want to hear this. You woke up one day and you identify as this. Nowadays, everybody's identifying as something. Notice this? I identify as poly. What a load of bullshit. And he should have pretty much ended her right then and there, because that says it's over. And I don't want to hear for a second that she has anybody lined up. They always have somebody lined up. Come on. Or at least a website to quickly click some buttons and dudes are coming in. No. What he should do is end it with her. But if he's going to stay with her, I think this is hilarious. Okay, we're officially divorced. Yeah, we'll still be together, living in the same place and have our fun, but that's it. But what would probably happen if they went along with this, eventually he would just walk out anyway. But it's always funny when these stories come about and the gal doesn't get her way. Let me read some comments here. One guy says, you don't want a divorce, but he doesn't want his wife dating other people. You're basically telling him that you want to try poly for better or worse. You can't be angry when he fires back an ultimatum. Exactly. Another guy says he's protecting himself, which is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. He wants an out if things go horribly wrong and aren't able to be fixed. Again, a prudent strategy to take. You want something and he's willing to give it to you for something in return. Quid pro quo is the gold standard of relationships for a reason. She wants to have permission to essentially cheat. Okay, then he's going to get something out of this. And obviously you don't see him thinking it's a great idea to go hook up with other chicks. Another one says, honestly, you come across as a very focused on your own needs and feelings and not very empathetic towards his, in both your OP and your subsequent comments. You've essentially told him that he has to renegotiate the core of your relationship based on what you believe to be a core aspect of your being. If you're a married man and years into the relationship, he revealed himself to be gay, very much in love with you, but also very much gay and unable to be fulfilled with just you as a result, wouldn't you be hurt and upset? It's a big pill to swallow. Anyway, your husband comes across as pragmatic and kind even when filtered through your anger. He's right. Poly is a lot of work for often very little reward. Do you read this for him? Poly can be incredibly dangerous to a pre-existing relationship. Jealousy is a constant issue, and yet despite all these entirely reasonable objections, he's willing to take the plunge, but he wants to protect himself first in a practical way. Knows the man is being logical, and the woman is being emotional, and not to mention selfish as all hell. That's smart and admirable, not manipulative. He's expressing his boundaries. He has reasonable fears and has reasonable fears that going poly may irreconcilable damage your relationship, but he loves you and understands that you need to try this, so he's trying to find a way to negotiate it. Instead, you just whine about yourself and your own feelings, never once showing sympathy for the spot you put him in. You don't sound like a good spouse, poly or not, to be honest. Yeah, she's an asshole. She's freaking garbage. And I guarantee you, like some of these stories, if he would do this, and he started dating, and obviously she would have no if she's remotely good looking, above average, she's going to get plenty of D, and he starts meeting women and gets serious with one of them, every time, when the guy finds some chick that doesn't want to be like that and he gets serious with, or she can tell he's starting to fall for her, that's when the wives always want to close the open marriage, always. And oftentimes it's too late, and they go bawling their eyes out and singing the blues on Reddit or YouTube or whatever, and it's pretty hilarious. So I think at the very least this guy's going to do it, get the divorce, and that way everything's done on paper, or walk away completely.